talented congregation, don't we? I mean, just a group of people who just get up there and willing to do it. Amen. So thank you guys. You know, that I hear that social scientists say that the thing that people are the most afraid of, more afraid than dying, more afraid than anything else, is getting up and performing in front of people. So you've got it nailed. You're good. So today I'm going to vary from Reverend Sonia's book discussion because it just didn't fit. But I'm going to talk today about viewing the world with ears to hear. Okay? So once there was a woman who's going through a divorce, and she was hurting. She was hurting really bad, and it seemed to get worse every single day. Every day it got worse. Her life was kind of unraveling. And there was a man, and he lost his job, and he faced severe financial difficulty. And he got so focused on his problems and what wasn't working that he couldn't sleep, and it affected his health. There was a woman who prayed all of the time for healing, and yet the majority of her waking time she spent focused on her illness. So today we're going to talk about a gift we were given thousands of years ago, by a shepherd boy who became a king by the name of David. And the question is this about that gift, and that is, have we as modern 21st century people, 22nd century people, have we been willing to accept the gift? Think about that as we go through. So sometimes we have gifts in our lives, our children, our friends, our health, and we take them for granted. We don't acknowledge them, and we don't always realize what a true gift they are. You know, we kind of, I take them for granted. And the 23rd Psalm, as we learned it as kids, or at least I learned it as a youngster, we sometimes repeat it word for word, and we don't really think about what the words say. And it's another gift that we take for granted. So I'm going to read it to you, and then we're going to pick it apart. We're going to take away the levels of the onion a little bit, okay? So, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me in beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So we're going to look at these words in a way that Unity interprets the Bible. And so I'm scheduled to speak for 3 Sundays in the next month and a half. And I'm going to be talking about the Bible as literature, the Bible at New Testament, Hebrew Scriptures and New Testament, in a way that Unity interprets the Bible, which is metaphysically. We look at the Bible through a metaphysical lens. It is our textbook. We honor it. We treasure it, we study it, and yet its way of explaining what's happening in the world is very contemporary. It's not about what happened years ago. So we look to translate it a little bit. So because unless we look at it through a metaphysical lens, I believe we miss the point because it becomes a so what factor. It's like, oh yeah, it happened back then, and they had a way of handling it back then, so why should it matter to me now? And what metaphysical interpretation will teach you is that it's very relevant for you. There's a reason why Scripture's been around a long time. It's because it contains a lot of wisdom. And really what we have to do is walk through it with a lens that allows us to translate it and not relativize it, but make it more relevant. So what we have in this psalm is a record of an individual's experience of the presence of God. David experienced God. And what happened to David, and the way that it happens, is a roadmap for each of us if our goal is to get to that experience or to have that experience. So let's start with the Lord as my shepherd. God as shepherd. We as sheep. Now, I know that in contemporary America that doesn't sound like a good thing. But get it that the shepherd is devoted to the care of his sheep. So you could make it anything. You could make it puppies. You could make it kitties. You could make it whatever you want. But that devotion that David saw as God's role in his life is one that we can understand. God cares for me. Get that? And that's something that many of us who are raised in some more traditional environments don't really hear a lot. And that is, individually, God cares for you. You matter. You matter to the universe. You matter to the energy of all that is, which is how unity sees God. And so you matter. So you have to start with that. You have to start with, I know that I matter. And I know that I matter to God, and that God's caring for me. Now, we may have had times in our lives that we didn't feel particularly cared for. Some people have bad experiences growing up. Some people live through some hard times and it doesn't seem fair. But the truth of it is that our lives can be lived in a way that we can choose to feel that loving spirit of God and acknowledge it. It's there. It never goes away, but we forget. I forget. And so all I have to do at that particular time is remember. I don't have to do anything else. I just have to remember that it's there. I have to be open to it. I have to be willing to accept it. God never forces anything on people, ever. So you have to want it, and you have to be willing to accept it. And how would that feel, to be willing to accept the care of the divine, the care of the universe? So we can be aware and accept that presence in joy, which is a good thing, but also in times of anger, in times of sadness, in times of tragedy, in times of loss, in times of benevolence, in times of when your heart feels like it's cracked open and there's not any more to give. There's always more to give, because you have the energy of the universe behind you if you're willing to accept it. And knowing that presence is always with you, can bring you a state of peace. So you can have that state of peace inside of any situation that you're in, if you choose to. And sometimes it doesn't seem like a choice. So this is an ideal environment, but sometimes when you're in the middle of it, don't beat yourself up. Just realize that you're human, and that's part of the human experience, but that it's there for you. Know somewhere deep down that it's there for you. The psalm goes on to say, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. This is a recording of the experience of the presence of God. When you hold that experience, want goes away, because you're filled with the allness of the universe. You know, Thomas Merton, who was a 20th century monk, said, a rich person has no needs. Okay? When you are filled with the enoughness of God, I always loved that name. There's a Hebrew name for God that's called El Shaddai, the God who is enough, the God of enoughness. So when you know that enoughness of God, want becomes a little selfish, little tiny sliver of all that is in the world. And when you realize that, it doesn't look so overwhelming. It doesn't look so overpowering. Now, Merton wasn't talking about money necessarily. He was talking about being in that state of oneness, in that state of abundance that is. It's willing to be fulfilled. It's willing to be content. You know, there's a lot of people who get a whole lot of energy out of being malcontents. You know, that like fuels their engine to get up and complain, and there's always something. What if that energy could be contentment? What if that energy can be so powerful within you that it just kind of spills out everywhere? Different energy. Same energy, expressed differently. So when the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, I cannot want, I will not want, all of it. All of that is true. And it goes on to say, he makes me to lie down in green pastures. So part of my Bible study, I like context. I know we've talked about this a lot in here. But I like the idea of knowing what's going on in the world when things were written, because it's not just background. So like background is that, okay? Background is that. Well, we all did it in school, right? You went to, now it's fall, now it's Easter, now it's Christmas, and they just dropped that thing behind you. That's background. What I'm talking about more is matrix. And matrix is that thing that weaves things all together. So what's going on politically? What's going on economically? What's going on socially? None of this happened the Bible wasn't written in a vacuum. It was written by real people living real lives in a real country, in a real place, and dealing with real problems. So, the life of a shepherd. During the heat of the day, the shepherd makes sheep lie down in grass. We came back Peggy and I were out in Columbus this week, and we came back and it was god-awful hot out there. It's dry, and what we noticed as we were driving back, all of the animals were gathered together under the shade of a tree. Nobody was out grazing. They were all kind of huddled together, okay? And the people who own the animals put them in the meadows that had the most cover, the most shade. So what the shepherd knew is that the sheep would be nourished in their rest, that they wouldn't be exerting so much energy just to stay cool. And who of us hasn't experienced the heat of life? Okay, we've been there, guys. Many of us, most of us, at our collective ages, all of us have experienced some of that heat. And what is the normal human reaction to that heat of life? Sometimes it's to run. Usually it's somehow to act, to do something, right? We feel powerless and we're going to do something. But in this example, what we're told to do in the heat is rest. Stop. The shepherd knows that there is power in stillness. The shepherd knows that there is power in shade, in coolness, and whether that's coolness of temperature outside or coolness in our heart and brains. Okay, the shepherd knows that. In rest, there's a nourishment. In rest, there's perspective. In rest is where the ideas of God come from. When we're so busy doing, God's not going to compete with that. It's like, you're on your way, God, go. When you're ready to settle down and be quiet, then we'll talk. And at Unity Village, they have several chapels, and they all have the same background in them, and it all says, peace, be still. That's what it says, just stop. Stop and notice. Stop and be still. And what we do then is develop the skills to get through the experiences that we have. Because we'll realize how we feel when we stop and rest. Okay, he leads me beside still waters. Now, I learned this too. Sheep instinctively are afraid of turbulent water. They have all of that fur, and I know it's not fur, but whatever you call the stuff that sheep have, whatever they have, it gets wet and it gets really heavy. And it's easy for them to drown, which I never thought of before. And so the way I understand it, what shepherds do is they build like an earthen dam, and they create a still pool of water, even like in a rushing river. They create a still pool of water where the sheep can go and rest and drink without being afraid of the raging river. Now, the raging river is still there. The river doesn't go away. But I'm losing my hearing aid, okay. It's not in their face. So he builds this dam, creates a barrier, creates a safe space where they can refresh and drink the water. So think about that dam. Where is the power in the dam? The power in the dam is at the bottom of the dam. Now, those of us who've lived through Katrina, those of us who've been at Lake Conroe and seen the water go over the top of the dam, come to know that that's the over the top is not good, but it's okay. It's when the bottom starts breaking down. It's when the anchor starts breaking that the dam is going to give way. So, where's your base? You want the stillness of God. You want the stillness of peace. And what are you doing about it? What base are you building? What dam are you building against that raging river that's going to allow you to drink, that's going to allow you to get replenished, that's going to allow you to be refreshed, that's going to allow you to get the divine ideas that you need to move forward? That's where the power is. The power is underneath. The power is in the stillness. The power is in the base. It's in our core. What are we doing to do that? You know, I love coming here on Sunday. We could all do this. It's all fun. We take classes, we do. But what is your base? Where is your base? And how are you strengthening it? So, Meister Eckhart, who's one of my favorite teachers, said that he said two things that I really love. One is that there's nothing so like God as stillness. And the other thing he said was, what you do speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you say. Okay. Those are the keys to experiencing God's presence. Be still, be willing, and stay rested up. You know, so many of us I'm finally glad that in retirement I'm past this, but we take pride in how exhausted we are. You know, it's like, I am so busy. Have you seen my calendar? Have you seen my calendar? And I've got this calendar for home and this calendar for work. Yeah, it's exhausting. Don't celebrate that. That's not who you're meant to be. Take the time to rest. Be active resting. I mean, you can rest and you can read and you can learn and you can grow and you don't have to exhaust yourself doing it. The next verse says, he restores my soul. And that is what happens when we experience God. There's a restoration that happens, a rebuilding. It's not a replacement, because remember, who you are is sacred at the outset. But oftentimes what God does is give us the ability to restore, to bring back, to make new. And any of us who have been going through renovations in our houses and reconstructions outside, all of that, make new, rebuild. You see, because these first verses are about our relationship to God and how to bring that experience into your life. Now we're going to look at what happens when you get it. What happens when you're restful and you're still. Because probably one of the biggest losses, I think, that we experience in our modern life is the loss of rest and the loss of quiet and the loss of stillness. I don't know how many of you get here, I'll own it. I get overwhelmed with noise, with people talking too much, the TV on all the time, the radio on. It doesn't allow for thinking. There's just too much coming in. And you know, bless the electronic devices. Okay. Now, I spent last summer, those of you who know me know I spend the summer up in the Northeast, and I'm on the Delaware River, and it's gorgeous, and it's beautiful, and there are eagles, and they're fishing on the river, and it's a beautiful day. And I'm sitting with 5 or 6 people, and every one of them is on their phones. It made me angry. I mean, I couldn't do anything about it. But this is a person who leaves her phone in her car. I mean, I spend a lot of my life looking for my phone because it's not attached to me biologically. But it really, it's like Guys, do you realize what you're missing? Get your noses out of that phone. And remember, whenever Jesus had to do something important, whenever he had to prepare himself for major events in his ministry, and even for his final days before his crucifixion, he went away. He went away. He went to the desert. He went up to the mountain. He went away. He went away from people. He went away from the clatter of his day, whatever that was, which I'm sure was overwhelming too. And out of that stillness, he found the energy, he found the inspiration, he found the restoration to be able to move on to the next phase of his life. So we won't get that unless we do that. And we may live our lives in that deficit all of the time without the gift of being able to restore. So, and the next part of the psalm tells us what we need to do, to be still and rest and help God help us. Okay, because it's not going to be imposed on us. So another thing happens is he leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. And really what that translates to is we get guidance. We get guidance that's not of our own making. It's like, do you ever happen that? You sit there and you think about it, it's like, man, I would have never thought of that. You know, it comes out of left field, and it's, okay, where did that come from? I never would. But unless you sit down, shut up, and be quiet, you're never going to hear it. Or I'm never going to hear it. So that's part of it. And when you do it, remember that it's for God's sake. It's not for your sake. It's because when you do that, you're stepping into the plan. It's like there's this roadmap that we live, that was given to us when we were born. And it's our divine job. It's our divine destiny. And when we're willing to step onto that path, when we're willing to say yes to it, the obstacles kind of fall away. So we are blessed when we're given guidance, even when we don't want it. Do you ever pray and say, that's not the answer I wanted? No, I had something better in mind. You know, that's when I get into telling God my best advice about what he should do for me. So it's crazy. It's crazy, but I do it all the time. But what that really means is we become God in the world. God has no physical presence. Okay, she, whatever, doesn't have hands and feet, doesn't have a mouth, doesn't have the ability to look in someone's eyes and give them the compassion they need. But for God's sake, we could do it if we so chose. And out of that flows then the magic of the lives we touch in a way that you might not ever know. It could happen a year after you have an interaction with somebody, but you never know where those ripples lie. So we are God's presence in action. Big responsibility, not going to be forced on you. You get to say yes or no. But if you say yes, it makes life a whole lot easier. So perhaps you think that if this is what you do, all of your problems are going to go away. Not going to happen. Because what it says is, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Now, the directive is we have to walk through the valley. Now, it doesn't say set up home there. Okay? It doesn't say decorate it, put in upholstered seats. It's walk through it, get through it, come out the other side. And the promise is that there will be a come out the other side if we allow it. If we want to stay stuck, and I've done it. I mean, I have a rut that I could upholster. I decorate it. It's safe. I understand it. All of the boundaries are there. I know what to expect. Out there, not so much. Out there is the unknown sometimes. I'm stepping beyond my comfort zone. And out there might be good, but then there might be not good. But it's a shadow. Remember that. It's a shadow of death. It's not a reality. And we create our own shadows. So it says, I will fear no evil because you're with me. So it's not focusing on the problem. It's just remembering that God is with us through it all. Whatever it is, God's there. And together, he, she, we, it can manage to do whatever it is we need to do to walk through it. To know that God has your back. That, for me, is the easiest way to explain it. I don't know. I don't have to know what it looks like. I don't have to know how it's going to express. It might express as another person. It might express as a situation that I can step into. Whatever it is, if I know that it's there, I can take the next step. It says, your rod and your staff comfort me. So a staff is the stick with the hook at the top, okay? And it was used to fish sheep out of difficult situations. So if they got caught under like the underbrush, okay, the shepherd would get the stick and help pull them out, or they'd pull the brush back so they could walk through. It's guidance. It's guidance that comes when we give our attention to God and not to the problem. Amen. And the end result is comfort. It's comfort, right? Your rod and your staff comforts me. If I know that that's there, I don't have to be scared. Amen. I don't have to feel alone. I don't have to feel isolated. I don't have to feel like the whole world is on my shoulders and it's my job to fix it. None of that has to be true. So, it allows us the space to rise up and take action. And verse 5 becomes very interesting because the energy of it shifts. God is no longer the shepherd, now he's the host. Okay, and he says, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. There is a Bedouin desert tradition that says, do you remember, we're old enough, we can remember this. Remember when Saddam Hussein had what did he have? He had captives, I guess. He went to the American embassy and he took people hostage. And then he went on television and he showed how enraged Americans were. Well, I worked with an Arab man who was so upset because he said they don't understand the tradition. They don't understand the Bedouin tradition, which is if you take an enemy, you have an obligation in the Quran to notify their families, to give them shelter and food, and water especially, and to let the families see them, whether it's an agent comes and sees that they're okay, they're still alive, or you put them on television and you see them, to let them know that their family members, their tribe members are safe. And he said that's what he's doing. But because of our cultural insensitivity, we chose to make it be something else. Not that he should have not, I'm not saying he shouldn't have captured people, but that particular gesture was not one that was hostile. It was meant to be, in some ways, very conciliatory. So in this light, for me, it means we're invited to see our enemies in a different light. If you truly become a servant, if you truly become a host, how likely is it over the long run that you'll still be hostile with them? If you get to know them, if you get to, if not understand, maybe appreciate some of their idiosyncrasies. You can do that. You can do that. You can choose to do it. And in that way, you choose to be like God, who is all good and accepts all. Remember, God created it all. It's all part of creation, and it's all good. Everything God created, he said, it's good. We don't understand it always, but it's good. Okay. The anointing with oil thing. That is the true translation of the word Messiah. The word Messiah means someone who is anointed, an anointed one. Kings were anointed. There were lots of messiahs. We kind of put that name to Jesus all the time, but there were a lot of people. Kings got anointed, bishops got anointed, everybody got anointed. And what it is beholding God's good in someone else. The gesture of anointing someone acknowledges that they are acting in God's good. So, what would happen when you did that? What would happen if we all looked at each other like that? Wouldn't our cup overflow? Wouldn't it? Yeah, it's unfortunately not something we do very often. Okay, and then it closes with, I think, is one of the most incredible promises for humanity. When we're willing to internalize it, it said, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. That's the closing of the verse. So whether you're in conflict with yourself or with another human being, that is the promise if you work on the solution. That is the resolution. So, in the Bible, there's a phrase that's used a lot that says, the message is for those with ears to hear. Okay? People who don't have the ears to hear don't get the message. Message is still there, but they don't get it. So now, I'm going to invite you with ears to hear to listen to me rereading this 23rd Psalm and see if it doesn't somehow resonate even a little bit differently with you than the first time I read it. Okay, so close your eyes. Just be with it. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And so it is. Amen and namaste.